YouTube, man, it's your boy CentricPizza 1K, man, aka Quarterman, back with another reaction video, man. My bad. I just woke up, bro. You see the title, thumbnail, man. It's not clickbait. We got how a shot role player become an NBA legend, man. We got, another reaction video to Kawhi Leonard, man. The GOAT, man. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know, Kawhi and all that, but he get the job done. Either way, man, he's the best player. So that being said, let's rap. We on the road to 100K, man. Make sure you subscribe, man. Hit that like button, man. We got nicest people not hitting like buttons. I appreciate all the support, man. We gained like 3-4 subscribers. I appreciate this week, man. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep subscribing, keep it going, man. Like the video, man. It helped on the video grow so much, bro. You know what I'm saying? To the channel. We're on the road to 100K. So that being said, man, let's rap.
Kawhi Leonard wasn't always so shy and quiet. He was once full of love and laughter, until one night, murder changed him. Here's the story of Kawhi Leonard and how he transformed from a role player into an NBA source. But even though Kawhi's mother took custody, it was his dad who was instrumental in Kawhi's sports career. Mark Leonard was a former football player, and he pushed Kawhi towards the gridiron. With a big athletic frame, long arms, and enormous hands, Kawhi was a talented defensive back and a wide receiver. But Kawhi gave up football as a high school sophomore to focus entirely on basketball. At first, his father was mad because basketball wasn't a safe bet. Kawhi was no prodigy like LeBron James, but Kawhi loved basketball more than anything, and that's when his work ethic came on full display. He'd stay late after every practice, sometimes shooting and dribbling up to 4 hours after everybody's left the gym. Then, his life forever. Just as Kawhi was prepping to play a high school tournament, his father was finishing up his day at their family-owned car wash, where Kawhi could close the shop and go son play. It was a good day until a stranger walked into the car wash, approached Kawhi's dad and pointed a gun at him. Just as Kawhi was approaching his school gym, he got a phone call. His father was dead. Just 24 hours later, his MLK high school had another game, and against all odds, Kawhi showed up and played. Emotionally distraught, Kawhi still finished with 17 points, but as soon as the game ended, he broke down, crying in his mother's arms. Tragedy is an excuse to stop watching, and he mostly kept quiet after his father's death. He let his game do all the talking. In his senior year, he led his team to a 30-3 record with 23 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks on average, after which he was named California's Mr. Basketball. However, despite the obvious improvement in his game, Leonard wasn't yet a nationally recognized name and was ranked as only the 48th best high school player in the country. Colleges who tried to reach him weren't too crazy about him either, as he was notoriously silent and wouldn't answer his phone for weeks. He received an offer from UCLA, but Kawhi ultimately chose San Diego State because they guaranteed him a starting spot. As a freshman, Kawhi averaged 13 points and 10 rebounds, pushing the Aztecs to a conference title and the bid to the NCAA tournament. Leonard wanted to put his name in the NBA draft immediately after his freshman year, but his coaches advised him not to do it. Even though he was an excellent rebounder and defender, Kawhi couldn't shoot. He shot just 20% for 3, even though opponents often left him wide open, knowing that he can't hit an ocean from a boat. So Kawhi listened and decided to stay. In his sophomore season, he averaged 16 points and 10.5 boards with not great, but not terrible 30% accuracy from 3. San Diego State repeated as conference champions and would make it to the Sweet 16 before losing to future champs Kemba Walker and named a second-team All-American and put his name on a 2011 NBA draft. During the NBA draft combine, every scout raved about his physical attributes. 6'7", 225 pounds with a pterodactyl 7'3" wingspan and enormous 11-inch hands. Some of the biggest claws in the history of the combine. Everybody was drooling at his defensive potential, but nobody thought he'd ever become a polished defensive player. Kawhi was a classic tweener, not big enough to do damage in the post and not technically good enough to create from the outside with an unreliable shot. Kawhi dropped all the way to number 15 when he was finally selected by the Indiana Pacers. However, just moments after he was drafted, there was another shock for Kawhi. He was immediately traded to Popovich's favorite player. Popovich later said that this trade was the hardest decision he ever made because he knew he needed to get a great defender in the draft, but he wasn't sure that Kawhi's offense was going to pan out. They decided to roll the dice, and Leonard joined the Spurs, where he would immediately fit in due to As a rookie, Kawhi quickly started playing crunch time minutes, which is not something that Popovich usually does with the rookies. But Leonard's smothering defense soon guaranteed him a starting spot, and he even surprised with his shooting. Sure, he wasn't doing much with the ball in his hands, but he was very effective as a spot-up shooter, shooting 38% from 3. Still, Kawhi only took 6 shots per game, averaging 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist, and finishing 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. Greg Popovich said this about Kawhi after his rookie season: "I think he is going to be a star. At both ends of the court, he is a really special player. And what makes me so confident about him is that he wants to be a great player so badly. And it didn't take long for the world to see what Coach Pop was talking about. Kawhi improved his averages across the board in his second season, taking smart, efficient shots and shooting 38% from deep on 3 attempts per game. But what was most impressive is how he increased his level of play in the playoffs, which is extremely rare for such a young player. Leonard was the Spurs' best defender and their third best overall player, behind Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. San Antonio lost just 2 games on their way to the finals, where they were awaited by the best player in the world, LeBron James and his Miami Heat. Kawhi guarded LeBron better than anyone in the NBA at the time and was the only person that could slow him down. When the Spurs won, it was because LeBron was shooting below 50%, largely thanks to Kawhi's long, disruptive hands. However, the Heat made adjustments and James started hitting shots from the outside. In the pivotal Game 6, when the Spurs were up 3-2, James orchestrated a miraculous comeback in the fourth quarter. Still, the Spurs had a 5-point lead in the final minute, and it seemed a lock that they would win the title, until one of the biggest shots in NBA history took place and changed the narrative. In the overtime, the Heat prevailed and took the series to Game 7, which was again decided in the final minutes. Even though Kawhi took away his driving lanes, LeBron knew that he needs to make one jump shot for the win, and he did. James finished with 37 points, proving his status as the best in the world, and Miami stole the championship away from the Spurs. Kawhi averaged 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals in the finals, and he put the world on notice. He arrived on the big scene, but Kawhi being Kawhi, he didn't rest on his laurels. Leonard worked extremely hard in the offseason, further improving his shot and putting on muscle. His efficiency increased, but his numbers stayed virtually the same. However, that's mainly because the Spurs played an extremely team-oriented brand of basketball, where their best scorer averaged just 16 points, and nobody on the team played more than 30 minutes per game. San Antonio finished with the best record in the NBA, and Kawhi earned another finals with Miami. After the first 2 games, the series was tied at 1 apiece, and it seemed like we were getting another nail-biter, but Kawhi had other plans. He dominated.
Okay,
Garlic honey mustard chicken and bullet in a rye Manhattan make for the perfect combination of bitter, sweet, and bold.
Bro, come on.
He dominated in Game 3 with a game-high 29 points and stellar defense on King James. Even though LeBron made a ton of tough shots and actually had an extremely effective series, Kawhi bothered him every possession and didn't let him breathe.
Wow.
LeBron had no room to dribble, limited the ball, and limited his touches. James had to work like hell for every basket he made. And LeBron knew that his best chance was when Leonard was out of the game. And that's where James was most aggressive. When Kawhi, he could see visible frustration from the King because he knew that his points were going to be much harder to get. Game 3 turned out to be a blowout, and so were Game 4 and Game 5. Miami had no answer to the Spurs' phenomenal ball movement, and many people believe that the 2014 Spurs' beautiful basketball ever. Even though Tony Parker scored 1 more point than Kawhi in the series, Leonard was named the Finals MVP due to his impeccable defense and astronomical shooting percentages. Kawhi averaged points on 61% from the field and 58% from 3, and was the second youngest Finals MVP in the NBA history behind Magic Johnson. During the finals, with gigantic hands and the way they wreaked havoc on Miami's players, Kawhi got nicknamed the Claw. After the title, the Spurs quietly but noticeably gave the keys to the team to Kawhi. In 2015, Leonard led the Spurs in minutes, field goal attempts, and points per game. However, his offense wasn't something people were talking about because Kawhi was still making headlines with his defense. Leonard led the league in steals with 2.3 per game, and some of those looked like he was taking candy from a baby. San Antonio had the second best defense in the NBA, and Kawhi deservingly won the Defensive Player of the Year award. However, the Spurs lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Clippers, primarily due to poor performances from Parker and Ginobili. Kawhi did his part, averaging 20 points with excellent shooting numbers, again improving all of his stats in the playoffs. Then came 2016 and brought the complete transformation of Kawhi Leonard from just a defensive stopper into a full-blown superstar. He wasn't just a cutter and a spot-up shooter anymore. Kawhi's toolbox now included post-ups, turnaround jumpers, fadeaways, and attacking the mismatch in the paint. He busted the myth that he could not create his own shot, and Popovich finally started using him in pick and rolls due to his improved handle. Leonard averaged over 20 points per game for the first time, made his first All-Star team, and repeated as Defensive Player of the Year. He was also runner-up for the MVP award behind Steph Curry. However, the playoffs offered another disappointment, and the second-round exit against OKC will mostly be remembered by Tim Duncan's final NBA games. In 2017, Leonard improved again, just like he did in every season up to that point. Without Tim Duncan, and with the aging Parker Parker and Ginobili now have the high 25.5 points and 3.5 assists, with 2 made threes per game. And despite his transfer, and he made his 3rd consecutive first-team All-Defense. Leonard led the Spurs to the conference finals against the Warriors, who were the heavy favorites. But when Game 1 started, it wasn't Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, or Klay Thompson who was pulling all the strings and dominating. It was Kawhi. San Antonio had a 20 at halftime, and the Claw was unstoppable, scoring 26 points in 24 minutes on the court. And then the Spurs got a taste of their own medicine, and bad karma changed their franchise forever. In the early 2000s, their small forward, Bruce Bowen, was putting his feet in players' landing area, causing multiple players to injure their ankles. 1 decade later, their star small forward got the same way when Zaza Pachulia planted his feet underneath Kawhi when he raised up for a jump shot. Leonard was unable to continue, and without him, the Spurs lost a 21-point lead. He didn't play for the rest of the series, and each of the next 3 games was a blowout. That's how helpless San Antonio was without him. Kawhi was only 26 years old, just entering the prime of his career, and San Antonio counted on him to be their leader for the next 10 years. But to the surprise of the world, this scenario turned out from the truth, because when the 2017 season started, Kawhi missed the first 27 games, 9 games, but he continued to feel pain. The problem was that the Spurs doctor cleared him to play, almost accusing him of lying about being injured. And when you make such accusations to a player who's all business and no nonsense, that's where you piss him off and test his loyalty. Kawhi wanted a second opinion and found his own doctors. He stopped communicating with the team, and nobody knew what he was thinking about. The season ended, and Leonard was still silent. It was obvious that the impossible was now becoming inevitable, and that Kawhi was going to get traded. On July 18th, 2018, Leonard and Danny Green were traded to the Raptors in exchange for DeMar DeRozan.
When the season started, it was clear that Kawhi was arguably the best player in the NBA, and that his maturity as a player reached new heights. He averaged career-high 26.6 points and 7.3 rebounds. He made it look, and how defenses could do nothing to stop him from scoring. You name it, Kawhi was scoring in every way possible, and he did it so nonchalantly that it seemed like he was hitting practice shots. He also became a clear leader of the team, and for the first time, he embraced the role and became much led team. He wasn't doing load management. He might have won the MVP that year, but that's who Kawhi was. He never cared about individual awards. All he wanted was to win in the postseason, and he even admitted that he thinks the regular season is just a warm-up. But when the playoffs started, it was clear that Kawhi was more than warmed up. He opened the first round with 28 points on average on 55% shooting and 54% for 3.
In the second round against Philadelphia, he averaged 38 points and 62% shooting in the first 4 games. However, the 76ers were stacked, and the series went to Game 7. It was an extremely tight game with constant lead changes, and Jimmy Butler tied the score with 4 seconds to go. The Raptors had one final shot to win the game and the series when Kawhi got the ball. He dribbled to the right.
I remember that right now. I remember that right now.
Kawhi raised up and shot, and as the buzzer sounded, the ball was
Joel
still bouncing on the rim. But after 4 bounces, it finally fell inside the hoop. Kawhi let out a big scream, and his teammates hugged him, and this was the first Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history.
Sir.
In the conference finals against the league MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo in Toronto, as they lost the first 2 games. But then Kawhi started guarding Giannis, they turned the series around. Toronto won the next 4 games and proceeded to the finals, with Leonard averaging 30 points in the series. However, despite Kawhi's brilliance, the Raptors were still underdogs in the finals against the Warriors, who were aiming for a three-peat. But partly thanks to KD's injury, partly to Kawhi, Coach Nurse, and the rest of the Raptors who fought like lions, Toronto won the series in 6 games and took the first NBA title to Canada. Despite the emergence of Siakam, the resurrection of Fred VanVleet, and steady quality from Kyle Lowry, Toronto won the title because of Kawhi. Leonard was the finals MVP with 28.5 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, and 2 steals on average. And he averaged over 30 points during the entire playoffs. After the title, Kawhi was a free agent and he disappeared again. Nobody knew where he was or where he was going to sign, and he single-handedly stopped the entire free agency. Ultimately, he opted to return back home to California and once again that when he's held one of the best two-way players to ever play. But the problem is that he's having more and more injury problems, missing the entire 2022 season due to an ACL tear. If he brings the Clippers to the promised land and wins a title with his 3rd team, he'll have to be considered one of the 20 best players ever. But even if he doesn't, Kawhi doesn't care. He has already proved his worth as a champion and one of the hardest workers in the NBA. Kawhi is one of the rare players that started his career as a pure role player and emerged as a superstar and a 2-time Finals MVP. What's maybe the most most impressive is the way he improved his game in the playoffs, always scoring more and shooting more efficiently compared to the regular season. The scouts labeled him as a bad shooter when he first came to the NBA, and he's shooting over 50% from the field and 40% from three in his playoff career. Kawhi is actually the third most efficient player in playoff history, on top of playing some of the best defense the NBA has ever seen.
Don't do this, don't do this. Like, bro.
Is she still coming out dirty?
All right, man. If you enjoyed that video, man, you make sure you subscribe, man. My bad. Win the road to 100K, man. Make sure that like button, subscribe, man. You new, watch my videos, man. That being said, it's your boy CentricPizza 1K, man, aka Coda, man. Sign out. Peace.
I got bitch, tunnel.